That shady corner of your yard has beaten every plant you've ever put in it. And here's what the nursery industry doesn't want you to figure out, because it keeps you coming back to spend money every spring. It was never your fault. Every plant they sold you was engineered for full sun. You were set up to fail. Today, that stops. I'm going to give you 7 fast-spreading perennials that were built by thousands of years of evolution specifically for the darkest, driest, most difficult spots on your property. They spread on their own. They multiply into free plants. After year 1, they ask almost nothing from you. Stay with me through plant number 5, because that one has fed people through famines, has a documented medicinal history across 3 continents, and is probably already growing wild somewhere on your land right now. Most gardeners walk past it every day without knowing what they have. And if your goal is real self-sufficiency, producing your own food instead of depending on stores, I've put the complete system together in the Self-Sufficient Backyard. Link is below. Let's get into it. One thing before we start, and this is the reason most shade gardening advice completely fails you. There are 4 types of shade, and the plant that dominates one will die in another. Dappled shade, light filtering through a loose canopy. Most forgiving. Almost anything on this list handles it. Full shade, under 3 hours of direct sun. Challenging. Every plant on this list handles it. Deep shade, under dense evergreens or tight canopies. Genuinely difficult. 2 plants on this list were specifically selected because they handle it better than almost anything else available. Dry shade, the hardest condition that exists in gardening. Low light combined with tree root competition draining every drop of moisture from the soil. 3 plants on this list were chosen specifically because they were built for this. I'll call it out clearly as we go. Know which type you have before you plant a single thing. Now, 7 plants. Plant 1. Astilbe. The first time someone stops mid-stride in your shade garden in July and asks you what that plant is, the one throwing feathery plumes 2 feet above everything else, blazing red or cream white in a part of your yard where color looked completely impossible, that's Astilbe. And it happens every single time. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. Blooms mid to late summer, exactly when your spring interest has finished, and your shade garden desperately needs something to step forward and carry it. 3 varieties worth knowing. Perennial, the deepest, richest red in the family. Bridal Veil, pure, clean white that genuinely glows in low light. Pamela, compact, soft pink, perfect for tight spaces or border fronts. Here's the self-sufficiency angle most gardeners completely miss. One Astilbe plant divides every 3 to 4 years into 6, 8, sometimes 10 separate plants. At $10 to $15 per plant at any nursery, a single established clump in year 4 is worth $60 to $150 in free divisions from one morning with a garden fork. You are not planting a flower. You are starting a compounding asset that pays out every 4 years forever. One honest caveat. Astilbe needs consistent moisture. It thrives in moist shade, north-facing beds, low spots near downspouts. If your shade is predominantly dry, skip to plants 4, 5, and 6. Those were built for your situation. After bloom, leave the plumes standing. They dry to warm bronze and carry your shade garden through winter when everything else has gone flat. Plant 2. Hostas. 1 plant. Potentially 3 decades of free divisions. If you want a single image of what self-sufficiency looks like in a shade garden, a 30-year-old hosta clump that's been divided every 4 years is it. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Nearly every gardening region in the continental U.S. Cold hardy, drought adaptable once established, and among the most reliably deer-resistant shade perennials that exist. Here is the one thing almost no gardening channel ever mentions about hostas. The tightly furled shoots that emerge from the soil in early spring, before the leaves unfurl, are edible. They've been eaten as a spring vegetable in Japan for centuries. Lightly blanched, they taste faintly of asparagus. If you already have hostas in a shade bed, you have a perennial spring vegetable crop that required no additional planting, no additional space, and no additional money. It was already there. For deep shade, sum and substance, massive leaves, extremely reliable. For dry shade under trees, the blue leaf varieties like Halcyon handle root competition better than most. For weed suppression that eliminates that entire maintenance task permanently, plant them 12 to 18 inches apart and let them close in over 2 seasons. Plant 3. Wild Ginger. This plant grows wild across the forest, understory of most of North America. It spreads slowly and permanently through rhizomes just below the soil surface, suppresses weeds so completely that a well-established colony essentially eliminates weeding from that section of your property for the rest of your life. And almost nobody is growing it intentionally. Asarum canadense, North American wild ginger, is hardy in zones 3 through 7. Broad, heart-shaped leaves. Rich, dark green that holds texture and color deep into fall. Handles deep shade and dry shade, with a reliability that very few plants of comparable beauty can match. The historical depth here is real. Indigenous North American peoples and early European settlers used the aromatic root as a ginger substitute and culinary flavoring for centuries. It carries a genuine spicy quality. Worth noting, wild ginger contains aristolaucic acid, which makes it unsuitable as a regular food source. This is strictly historical context, not a daily use recommendation. But knowing what grows on your property and what it has historically provided to people who depended on the land, that knowledge belongs in every self-sufficiency gardener's library. From a practical standpoint, beautiful, weed-suppressing, deer-resistant, native ground cover handles the most difficult shade conditions on your property without ever becoming the kind of aggressive spreader that requires management. Once it's in, it's in. You don't touch it again. Tell me what state you're in below, and whether you've ever noticed heart-shaped leaves growing wild in your shady corners. You may already have this. Plant 4. Lungwort. Pulmonaria. Most self-sufficiency gardeners think hard about what their garden produces in summer. Almost none of them think about what their garden does for their vegetable yields in March. Lungwort blooms before the trees have leafed out, before your vegetable garden is planted, before almost anything else in the shade border has shown a leaf above the soil. The early bumblebee queens, the mining bees, the first butterflies of the season, they find it in March and establish territory on your property. Those same insects come back to work your vegetable garden from June through September. You're not just planting a flower. You're building a pollinator population that directly shows up in your food production all season. Pulmonaria officinalis, hardy in zones 3 through 8. The flowers open pink and deepen to blue and violet as they age, giving a single plant a multi-toned appearance at a time of year when color is almost non-existent. The foliage, deep green with silver-white spots that look almost painted, stays attractive from spring through frost. Trevi fountain for vivid blue flowers and vigorous spread. Raspberry splash for pink flowers and compact growth in tighter spaces. Spreads through rhizomes and gentle self-seeding. Divide every 4 years. Each division is a free plant. One of the most low-maintenance, high-value plants on this list across all 4 seasons. Plant 5. Solomon's Seal. This plant has been feeding people, supporting people through illness, and spreading across the forest floors of North America for thousands of years without a single human helping it along. It carries documented food history, documented medicinal history across multiple cultures, and it is one of the most completely overlooked shade perennials in American home gardening. Polygonatum biflorum. Native Solomon's Seal. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. The growth habit is unlike anything else in the shade garden. Arching stems rise from the soil in a clean, graceful arc, sometimes 3 feet. lined underneath with paired oval leaves and pendant white bellflowers that hang like small lanterns along the entire stem. In fall, those flowers become dark, blue-black berries that birds strip clean before the first frost. The foliage turns clear golden yellow before going dormant. You get spring interest, summer architecture, fall color, and wildlife value from a single plant in your shadiest spot. The self-sufficiency history. The young emerging shoots in early spring are edible, cooked with a mild texture and flavor similar to asparagus, documented across multiple indigenous North American food traditions. The root carries a long, serious history in herbalism, specifically for joint and tendon support, documented across both Native American and European traditions over centuries. Contemporary herbalists still work with it for musculoskeletal applications. As with any medicinal plant, appropriate research applies, but the knowledge that this plant, growing in your shadiest and most neglected corner, carries both food and medicine history is knowledge that belongs in your working vocabulary as a self-sufficiency gardener. Practically, it naturalizes completely once established, spreads through rhizomes at a moderate, manageable pace, zero maintenance required, no dividing, no staking, no deadheading, no winter cutback. It goes dormant, it comes back, it spreads a little further each year. That is the complete maintenance requirement for the life of the planting. For the absolute deepest, driest shade on your property, under the densest established trees where almost nothing else survives, Solomon's seal is one of 2 plants on this list that handles those conditions with consistent, reliable performance season after season. Plant 6. Creeping Jenny, Lysimachia. You know what a landscaper charges to stabilize a shady erosion slope? More than you want to spend. And even after they're done, they've usually given you something that needs replacing in 2 to 3 seasons. Creeping Jenny solves that problem for free after the first planting. Permanently. Lysimachia nummularia aurea, the golden-leafed form, is hardy in zones 3 through 9. It does something almost no other shade plant manages. It brightens a dark space rather than disappearing into it. Where everything else gives you various shades of green blending together in low light, aurea throws warm gold-green that catches whatever light exists and reflects it back. A shady slope covered in aurea doesn't look like a problem area. It looks intentional. The spread mechanism is what makes it exceptional. Creeping stems root at every node as they travel across the soil surface. On a slope, those rooting nodes are simultaneously anchoring soil against erosion. You are covering bare ground, suppressing weeds, and stabilizing slope erosion with a single planting in the same growing season. No erosion fabric, no jute netting, no gravel. One plant installed this May begins doing all 3 of those jobs within the same season. In zones 6 and warmer, foliage is semi-evergreen through winter, which means slope coverage and erosion protection continues through the months when bare soil is most vulnerable to winter rain. You planted once, it is still working for you in January. Plant 7. Epimedium, barrenwort. The name is almost comically misleading. Barrenwort. Sounds like something that makes conditions worse. Professional landscape designers, the ones who charge $300 an hour for the gardens that end up in magazines, reach for epimedium constantly. The fact that most home gardeners have never heard of it is genuinely puzzling, and today that changes. Epimedium X versicolor, hardy in zones 4 through 8. Small, spurred, almost orchid-like flowers appear in early spring in red, yellow, pink, or white depending on variety, at a time when almost nothing else in the shade garden has moved. Sulphureum gives you clear yellow flowers and is the most vigorous spreader in the family, ideal for large areas you want covered quickly. Rubrum gives you rich rose-red flowers with heart-shaped foliage that emerges bronze-red in spring and returns to that coloring again in fall. Here is the specific condition where epimedium is without equal: dry shade under established trees. The exact condition that defeats astilbe, challenges hostas, and limits most plants on this list. Epimedium handles it as its preferred growing condition. The root system is extraordinarily efficient at extracting moisture from soil that competing tree roots have largely depleted. Once established, epimedium in dry shade under a mature canopy is essentially indestructible, not drought-tolerant in the marketing language sense of barely surviving, actually indestructible. The one honest caveat: it takes 2 to 3 seasons to start visibly moving. Year 1, it establishes. Year 2, it begins extending. Year 3, you see real coverage. Gardeners who don't know this give up in year 1 thinking, it's failing. It is not failing. It is building the root network that will then support decades of trouble-free spread. The one annual task: in late February, cut the old semi-evergreen foliage to the ground. One cut, once a year. That is the complete maintenance requirement for the life of this planting. Fresh foliage emerges with that beautiful bronze coloring, spring flowers appear, and the whole cycle runs again without anything further from you. Step back from the individual plants for a moment and look at what we've actually built. Solomon's seal and tall astilbe in the back. Hostas and lungwort in the middle tier. Wild ginger, epimedium, and creeping jenny closing in at ground level. That layered structure is not a design choice for aesthetics. It is the architecture of a forest floor, the most stable, self-sustaining plant community in nature. Once established, it manages itself. And the productivity of this system, fully understood, goes well beyond visual beauty. You have edible plants. Hosta shoots in early spring. Solomon's seal shoots in early spring, both with documented food history. You have 3 plants with serious medicinal tradition across multiple cultures: lungwort, wild ginger, Solomon's seal. You have a pollinator pipeline starting in March with lungwort and running through fall with seed heads and berries that directly support your vegetable yields. You have permanent weed suppression across your most difficult ground. And you have a division economy. Every 3 to 4 years, this system produces dozens of free transplantable plants worth hundreds of dollars at nursery prices. A yard that feeds itself, feeds wildlife, supports your vegetable garden, suppresses weeds, and multiplies for free. That is not a shade garden. That is a productive piece of land. And if you want to build a backyard that actually feeds you, not just one system like this, but vegetables, protein, and long-term self-sufficiency, it's all broken down, step by step in my book, The Self-Sufficient Backyard for the Independent Homesteader. Link in the description. One practical note before you go. May is the planting window for all of these, and it matters. Right now, in early May, the canopy above your shade spots is still partially open. The leaves haven't fully unfurled. Your new plants get 2 to 3 weeks of filtered but meaningful light during their most critical establishment period, before the canopy closes completely and true shade conditions set in. Plant in July and you're establishing in near total darkness from day 1. The difference in first-year performance is real and measurable. Miss this window and you're waiting until next May. One comment before you go. Tell me which plant from this list is going into your shadiest spot this season, and give me your zone and your shade type, moist or dry. I read every comment and respond to as many as I can, and your answers directly shape the videos that come after this one. That dark corner has been waiting. May is open right now. Go plant something.